You walk into a room and instantly scan the exits, not physically but emotionally. You notice where everyone is standing, who is already talking, who looks busy, who looks open, and who looks like they don't want to be bothered. You tell yourself you'll jump in soon. But soon never quite arrives. You stand there with a drink in your hand, nodding when someone makes brief eye contact, rehearsing small sentences in your head that you never actually say. On your phone, you look composed. In your body, you feel slightly tightened, slightly alert, slightly out of place. At work, you're friendly, polite, capable. People probably think you're fine. But when lunch plans pop up or someone says, "We should hang out sometime," something quiet shifts inside you. A subtle hesitation, a subtle distance. You don't reject them outright, but you don't lean in either. It looks like you don't want friends, but the truth is more complicated, because later that night when you're alone you might feel that familiar sting, that quiet loneliness, that sense of watching life happen around you while you stand just behind the glass. You want connection, yet something inside you keeps you at arm's length. Why does that happen? First, it's important to say this plainly. You are not broken for struggling to make friends. Nothing went wrong with you. Your brain is not defective. In fact, the very reason this feels so hard is because your mind is trying to protect you in a very human way. Sometimes, difficulty with making friends isn't about social skill. It's about emotional safety. Your brain has learned, somewhere along the way, that connection carries risk. Rejection, misunderstanding, being overlooked. So instead of pushing you toward people, it keeps you cautious, measured, a little distant. That can look like shyness, awkwardness, or disinterest from the outside, but inside it's protection, not indifference. Imagine you're at a group dinner. Everyone is laughing, talking over each other, shifting topics quickly. You sit there, listening more than speaking. You notice every detail, the tone of voices, the pacing of jokes, the way some people interrupt others, the way some people dominate space. On the surface, this might look like social anxiety, but underneath, something deeper is happening. Your nervous system is overstimulated. Too much noise, too many signals, too many variables. Your brain goes into observer mode instead of participant mode. It's trying to keep you safe by keeping you in control. Watching is predictable. Speaking is risky. Or think about childhood. Maybe you were quiet growing up. Maybe you moved schools. Maybe you didn't quite fit in. Maybe you were sensitive, thoughtful, or different in a way that wasn't always understood. Over time, your brain may have internalized a quiet message. Connections can be unpredictable. So now, as an adult, when someone is friendly, your mind doesn't automatically relax. It analyzes, it tests, it hesitates. You might think, do they really like me, or are they just being polite? That hesitation can make you seem distant, even though inside you're deeply observant and emotionally aware. Here's another layer. Sometimes people who struggle to make friends are actually very emotionally perceptive. You notice subtleties others miss. You can sense when a conversation feels shallow, when someone isn't genuine, when a dynamic feels off. That awareness protects you, but it also narrows your world. Because when you're that perceptive, you don't just connect with anyone. You wait for the right people, the ones who feel safe, meaningful, or aligned. And while that makes your connections deeper when they do happen, it also makes them rarer. Picture a workplace again. Everyone is casually chatting in the break room. You could join, but you're thinking, do I actually relate to this conversation? Instead of forcing yourself to fit, you step back. Not because you don't want connection, but because you don't want fake connection. That instinct makes sense. It's not avoidance. It's discernment shaped by experience. And this is where it gets interesting. The struggle to make friends often isn't about a lack of social desire. It's about a mismatch between your inner world and your environment. Many people who find friendship difficult are inwardly rich, reflective, thoughtful. They process deeply. But modern social life often rewards quick talk, surface-level bonding, and constant presence. Your style is slower, more intentional, more private. That doesn't make you wrong. It just means your way of connecting doesn't always match the pace of the world around you. As you get older, this behavior can shift. When you were younger, maybe your quietness felt like a flaw. Maybe you forced yourself to be louder, more outgoing, more social. You might have tried to mold yourself into someone you weren't, just to fit in. Now you might see it differently. Instead of thinking something is wrong with me, you might notice, I just connect differently. You may feel less urgency to be liked by everyone, but more longing for a few genuine relationships. The same behavior evolves, but it doesn't disappear. You might still hesitate in groups. You might still feel awkward at parties. But instead of shame, there's often a softer understanding, a sense that your distance isn't a defect, but a pattern shaped by your life. At a deeper level, struggling to make friends also serves an emotional function. It regulates how much you expose yourself, how much vulnerability you allow. For some people, emotional closeness can feel overwhelming, not because they don't want it, but because their system isn't used to it. So keeping relationships light, distant, or limited helps maintain inner balance. It's like wrapping yourself in a familiar blanket. Not tight, not suffocating, just enough to feel safe. In moments of stress, your tendency to withdraw can act like an anchor. When the world feels chaotic, pulling back into solitude gives you control, predictability, a familiar room where nothing surprises you. In that sense, your difficulty with making friends isn't just a social pattern, it's a coping rhythm your mind has relied on. Think about how you feel after a long day of social interaction. Even if it went well, you might feel drained, quiet, in need of solitude. That's not antisocial. It's your nervous system resetting. You process the world internally, and that takes energy. Sometimes people misinterpret this. They assume you're cold, distant, or uninterested, but they don't see the internal work happening inside you. The way you replay conversations, notice emotions, and reflect deeply. Your silence is not emptiness, it's depth. There's also the matter of identity. Over time, you might have started seeing yourself as the quiet one, the introvert, or the person who doesn't have many friends. Labels like that can stick. They shape how you move through the world. But those labels don't capture the full picture. You are not your social difficulty. You are someone who feels deeply, observes carefully, and moves through relationships with caution because you've learned that connection matters. That's not weakness. It's sensitivity shaped by experience. At the core of all this, struggling to make friends often comes down to one quiet truth. Your brain prioritizes safety over popularity, depth over surface, authenticity over convenience. That can make life lonelier at times, but it also means that when you do connect, it tends to be real. So when you find yourself standing alone at a party, or scrolling through your phone in a room full of people, or watching friendships form around you, it doesn't mean you are incapable of connection. It means your mind is navigating a complicated emotional landscape in the only way it knows how. And maybe in that light, your distance isn't something to be ashamed of. It's a story, a pattern, a reflection of your history, your sensitivity, and your need for safety. You are not someone who can't make friends. You are someone whose mind learned to approach connection carefully, slowly, thoughtfully, and that, in itself, is deeply human.